equals the smell of fresh daisies filled my tiny kitchen as I set the table for my sister's visit. I arranged the plain white dishes carefully, aligning each fork and knife with obsessive precision, trying to ignore the sinking feeling in my stomach. It was just lunch after all, but there was more at stake than a simple meal. I had not seen Claire in almost a year, and I felt the weight of every day since our last encounter heavy on my shoulders. The last time she had visited, I had thought we were close, but that day had shattered any illusions I had about our relationship. With each click of the plates, I rehearsed my opening lines in my mind. "Hey Claire, how's life treating you?" A casual approach, an attempt at normalcy, but deep down, my heart was pounding as I thought about what the real reason was for her visit. I poured 2 glasses of chilled lemonade, the condensation clinging to the sides of the glass, mirroring the frigid emotions that pooled inside me. My eyes wandered to the wall clock, each tick feeling like a countdown to a collision I could not avoid. My sister and I were as different as night and day, a contrast that had grown starker with each passing year. She was the outgoing one, always surrounded by friends and laughter, while I was the quieter type who preferred the company of books and a warm cup of tea. Longing for the easy camaraderie we once shared, I sighed, stepping over to the window to peer outside. The sun drenched Maplewood in a warm glow, creating a beautiful backdrop that reminded me of happier times. A gentle knock interrupted my thoughts, and I felt a ripple of anxiety surge through me. I wiped my hands on a dish towel, forcing a smile before opening the door. As the door swung open, my heart dropped a little. There she was, Claire, looking impeccable in her fitted teal dress, her long hair cascading over her shoulders like a waterfall of silky brown. "Mila," she exclaimed with exaggerated enthusiasm, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "It is so good to see you." I fought the urge to roll my eyes. "Yeah, you too," I replied, my voice steadier than I felt. She stepped inside, taking off her shoes and tossing her designer bag onto the nearest chair as if claiming my space for herself. I watched her as she glanced around my small apartment, her lips forming a slight frown. "You really have not changed much since the last time I was here." "What's that supposed to mean?" I snapped, catching myself as soon as the words escaped my mouth. "It's just an apartment." Claire waved her hand dismissively. "Relax, I am just teasing you. It is kind of charming in a way," she said, her voice light but her eyes betraying the underlying judgment. She had that knack for making me feel smaller than I actually was. I could feel my skin crawling under her gaze. I gestured toward the dining table. "Let's sit, lunch is ready." I smiled tightly, trying to mask my apprehension. We took our seats, and I watched as she sipped her lemonade, the bright yellow drink contrasting sharply with her perfectly manicured nails. Refreshing," she said, not meeting my gaze. There was something in the way she held her glass, the way her fingers lingered on the rim, that made my stomach twist. "So how have you been?" I asked, forcing myself to break the silence, trying to steer the conversation away from the awkwardness that lurked in the air. "Busy, you know how it is. Work, social events, the usual," she replied breezily. But there was a tightness in her voice, an unspoken tension simmering just below the surface. I caught her looking around my kitchen, her dark brown eyes appraising everything as if she was searching for something to criticize. "And you," she continued, flicking her hair back, "still working at the library?" I let out a soft laugh tinged with bitterness. "Yes, still the same old Mila, books and all that jazz." There was no need to hide my sarcasm from her. Claire was too caught up in her own world to notice the way I struggled against the life choices I had made. "That sounds lovely to be surrounded by stories, but do you not ever want to change your life?" she asked, her tone bordering on condescending. "Change," I echoed, raising an eyebrow. "What, like trade my job for a high-powered career in marketing like you?" The words slipped from my lips before I could hold them back, a bitter edge slicing through the casual conversation. Her smile faltered for a brief second. "I just mean you could do so much more." "More?" I asked, the question hanging in the air like a sharp blade. I wanted to laugh at her suggestion that I needed to be like her, consumed by ambition to the point of losing oneself. Yet here she was, charming and successful, while I buried my head in the pages of novels at an old library in town. "More does not always mean better, you know," I said finally, my voice calmer than my thoughts. "Sure, but I worry about you sometimes," she admitted, her facade slipping just enough for me to catch a glimpse of sincerity. "You are too wonderful to be stuck in a small town with," she hesitated, as if the next words could ignite an explosion between us. "With that life," her comment stung, but I held my tongue tightly. It was a reminder of why I had started to resent her over the years. The way she moved through life like it was a game and everyone else was just a pawn. Underneath her confidence lay a vein of cruelty that shone through at the most unexpected moments, and I wondered if this lunch was one of those moments. "I am happy where I am, Claire," I said softly, trying to convey the truth beneath my irritation. She dismissed me with a wave of her hand, but her eyes glimmered with that familiar competitive glint. "Okay, let us agree to disagree. Now, do you remember Jack from last year's family gathering?" The mention of his name turned my stomach. "Of course I do," I replied, forcing a smile and shifting in my chair. Jack had always been her type, charming, confident, and well-liked, a smooth talker who wrapped everyone around his finger easily. I had tried to start something with him, a flicker of connection that had shattered under the weight of my sister's relentless pursuit of him. That is right, I ran into him last month. He asked about you, Claire continued nonchalantly, as if talking about old times over lunch was something we frequently did, but I knew she was driving the knife deeper. Is that so? My voice came out colder than I intended. I tried to suppress the rising anger, but it was easier said than done. Yes, he mentioned how he really liked you, but then things were complicated. You know how it goes. Her smirk was infuriating. Imagine if you two had actually gone out, how cute you would have been together. Claire, I said firmly, wanting to shut down the conversation before it went further. What are you trying to achieve by bringing this up? Just then, Claire leaned forward, her expression shifting, a flicker of mischief dancing in her eyes. I just think it is funny how some people have all the luck and some just, she trailed off, her voice dripping with sarcasm. Well, some just get left behind. I felt my cheeks burn with shame. The fluttering sensation in my chest had grown into a familiar ache, and I gripped the edge of the table as if it would anchor me. What is your point? I snapped, unable to quell my rising frustration. My sister waved her hand dismissively again, but there was a flicker of something darker in her eyes. I just want the best for you, Mila. It is just hard to understand why you hold back. I am not holding back. I am choosing what I want, Claire. I could feel the tension vibrating between us, and I desperately wanted to change the subject. Despite all my efforts, the walls of our delicate relationship seemed to tremble on the verge of collapsing. She leaned back in her chair, a victorious glint igniting her eyes. And what is it that you want? To stay small in this little house forever, to forever compare myself to your lifestyle? There it was, the unmasking of the resentment that had simmered just underneath the surface for years. You have always compared yourself to me. What? No, she began, but I cut her off. Yes, you have. Everything has always been a competition with you. My voice rose as passion fueled my words. I could never understand why you treated me like I was in your way. You try to act perfect, but even your life does not hold a candle to the love I choose to give. Claire's face hardened as her words cooled back. Look, I did not come here to argue. I just thought that after everything we have been through, you would want to at least give me a chance. Chance for what, Claire? To succumb to another one of your fabricated ideals? I shot back, my anger spilling into every syllable. Maybe to understand that not everyone wants the same things as you do, she said softly, her expression a mask of faux concern, but I could see the tide shift. Is this what you wanted? I realized, a horrific notion creeping into my thoughts. You blew into town like a whirlwind, and all you really wanted was to see how far behind I was. Is that it, Mila? She started, but the tone of her voice did not carry the warmth I craved. Save it, Claire. You come here pretending to care, but it is all just a thinly veiled attempt to feel better about yourself. I just want you to see the bigger picture. Your potential is limitless, she insisted, the veneer of sisterly concern splitting. Maybe I don't want to be in your bigger picture, I snapped. My chest heaved with the weight of the confrontation, my voice trembling. Maybe I'm fine just the way I am. She drew her lips into a tight line, and for a moment I saw a flicker of hurt flash across her features, but it was gone just as quickly. Well, I am sorry for trying to help. This is why we never get along. I opened my mouth, ready to unleash the jumbled thoughts swirling in my head, but Claire held up a hand. Look, this was supposed to be a fun, casual lunch. Maybe I was wrong, she uttered, her facade of cheer breaking apart. The revelation hung heavy in the air, and I felt the distance between us stretch like a chasm. You think, I replied bitterly. The air around us crackled thick with unresolved tension, and I felt numb, the tastes of betrayal and disappointment swirling in my mouth. I had hoped for something different today, a spark of hope to rekindle our sisterly bond, but this lunch had quickly spiraled into something else. I think I should go, Claire said finally, her words flooding with an urgency that contradicted her earlier enthusiasm. She stood abruptly, pushing her chair back with a sharp sound that echoed in the silence of my kitchen. Just go, I managed to say, the cut of my own words slicing through the moment. She narrowed her eyes at me, frustration flaring between us before she turned on her heel and charged toward the door, her designer dress swaying as she marched out of my life once again. The echo of the closing door hung heavily in the atmosphere, a tangible reminder of the rift that now separated us. As I stared at her empty chair, I felt a fire ignite deep inside, fueled by anger and a sense of betrayal that coursed through my veins. The thought had flickered in my mind before, but now it solidified into something more concrete. I could not let this feeling fester. It was time for my sister to face the consequences of her actions. All those years of her high-minded judgments, her cruel insights, and her insufferable need to deem me lesser, they were not going unchallenged. I took a deep breath, letting the reality settle around me, and life still buzzed outside my window, unaware of the confrontation I had just faced. But I knew that I was not the same person anymore. No longer would I shrink in the shadows of my sister's pushy demeanor. This was the beginning of something new. No more hiding, I was ready to make a change. And when the time came, Claire would understand what it meant to lose. I stood in my small kitchen, the scent of coffee wafting through the air, mixing with the sweet aroma of toasted bagels, and yet my heart felt heavy. It was a crisp morning in Maplewood, the kind where the chill nipped at your skin and made you wrap your sweater tighter around your body. The dark green sleeves felt comforting, almost like armor, shielding me from the world outside. Staring out of the window, I caught sight of the rustling leaves, their vibrant colors telling me fall was in full swing while I remained rooted in memories of betrayal. The familiar sight of Emma Parker jogging by at this moment also ignited a spark of anger inside me. I could not help but remember when we were inseparable, making plans like we were sisters, long before she decided friendship was not worth the loyalty. My hands clenched around the warm mug, and I fought against the swelling tide of rage that threatened to swallow me whole. My thoughts spiraled back to the day the betrayal unfolded. It was months ago, but it felt like yesterday. The sun had barely risen, casting a soft glow in my living room. Emma had called me, her voice trembling with urgency. Mila, I need to tell you something. The sharp edge to her words ignited concern within me. Is everything okay? I had pushed the guilt of last night's wine-fueled argument into the back of my mind, sensing something far graver than my foolish disagreements. I don't know how to start this, she stammered, silence stretching between us like a dark chasm. I'm with Jake now. We've been seeing each other for a while. My grip on the mug nearly broke it into shards as the truth sliced through me, sharp and cruel. You mean my Jake? I had whispered, disbelief clouding my thoughts. He told me you were finished. We were not finished. You knew how much I loved him. I had shouted, the rawness of my emotions spilling out, echoing through the stillness of my home. I thought you were my best friend. The phone call ended in silence, the weight of her words hanging in the air. I had felt like the ground beneath me had been pulled away. Ever since that heart-wrenching moment, I had promised myself that I would not let their happiness tear me apart. I took a deep breath and focused on the now. Time to turn that pain into something useful. I glanced at the clock on the wall. It was time to meet Ben Fisher. We had been friends since childhood, though I had not leaned on him much since Emma's betrayal. Little did he know I needed his help. As I stepped out of my house, the overly sweet scent of the neighbor's breakfast wafted by, filling my senses with a mixture of nostalgia and bitterness. I had always thought I could count on Emma, and now I felt lost, navigating the tangled mess her choices had created. The air was crisp, invigorating as I walked toward the local coffee shop. The familiar clatter of cups and low hum of chatter greeted me when I stepped inside. The cozy atmosphere contrasted sharply with the whirlwind of emotions racing through my mind. I spotted Ben sitting at a corner table, his brown hair slightly disheveled, glasses slipping down his nose as he pored over some notes. He looked up as I approached, and an easy grin spread across his face. Mila, you made it. His voice was warm, filled with genuine relief, but also with a tinge of concern. Everything okay? Yeah, I just needed to get out of the house, I said, sliding into the seat across from him. The wooden chair creaked beneath me, the comforting creaks and hums of the cafe wrapping around us. It's great to see you. I've been worried about you. You seem so withdrawn since. He paused, searching for the right words, and I appreciated his hesitance. Since everything happened. I am okay, more than okay, I insisted, a hint of defiance in my tone. Ben raised an eyebrow, noticing my strained expression. Sure, let's go with that. I could see through him easily. The worry etched deep into his features only amplified my determination. I need your help, Ben. Anything, he said, leaning forward. I took a deep breath, grappling with the weight of my words. I need to get back at Emma and Jake. The moment the words slipped from my lips, I felt a surge of energy like I had unleashed a caged beast. Whoa, Ben replied, eyes wide with surprise. What do you mean? I mean nothing extreme, but things need to happen, little things to shake them up. I noticed the skeptical look on his face, but I pushed forward. They deserve to feel what I felt, Ben. I cannot just sit here while they prance around acting like they've done nothing wrong. I get it, but revenge isn't the answer, Mila. His voice held a hint of caution, like the gentle sound of a bell warning against the storm. You don't know how much control you will have once you start down that road. I felt a swell of anger rise, fanning the flames of my resolve. Maybe I want to feel that lack of control. Maybe I need this. The table felt stifling, the air around us thick with tension. Look, he said, trying to soften his tone. I know you're hurt and what they did was wrong, but think about the consequences. What consequences? I'll tell you what the consequences are. Sitting back and doing nothing gives them more power. It's infuriating. I bit my lip, letting the fury wash over me for a moment before calming my voice. Everyone thinks they can just walk over me. The clinking of cups and muffled laughter filled the space, but all of it felt distant, washed away by the roar of veins throbbing in my temples. Okay, what's the plan? Ben asked finally, resigned to my will. I don't know yet, I admitted, frustration creeping in. I just know that I want it to be unforgettable. I want them to know they messed with the wrong person. You're sure this is the right thing to do? He pressed, but despite the genuine concern in his eyes, I knew my decision was solidified. This was my last tie to the past that had to be severed. Yes, absolutely. I found comfort in the certainty of my voice. I just need your help for some clever ideas. Ben leaned back in thought, tapping his fingers on the table, and I could see the wheels turning in his mind. All right, let's brainstorm some ideas that won't ruin your life while also making them sweat a little. The corner of my mouth lifted, feeling the flicker of excitement burn as we dove into ideas. As we sketched out possibilities, I could almost taste the sweet tang of revenge dancing on my tongue. We could start small, maybe something that made them question their choices, like spreading rumors or leaving anonymous notes. It's not like they didn't deserve it. The day melted into ideas and discussions, laughter intertwining with my simmering anger as we opened a world I had never dared to consider before. In the haze of coffee and friendship, amid the warm amber glow of the cafe, I felt something shift. No longer just the broken friend, I was becoming a force to be reckoned with. Leaving the coffee shop together, laughter echoed in the crisp air as our plans swirled around, feeding my resolve. Mila, whatever happens, remember that I am here for you. Just be careful, okay? Ben's voice trailed off as we parted, but the words echoed in my mind. I needed to be careful, but love wasn't my aim, cleverness was. As I walked home, the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a brilliant tapestry of colors across the sky. Purples and oranges painted a revengeful sunset, a promise that things were changing. And so it began, the plans in motion, and with every thought of that treacherous couple, a smile crept onto my face, one that held the promise of chaos and the sweet sting of revenge. The world seemed alive, pulsing with potential, and I was ready to reclaim my strength. Today might have been just the beginning, but for the first time in a long while, the fire igniting within felt exhilarating, spilling over and consuming the remnants of my heartache. I was not done yet. The crisp autumn air danced around me like a playful spirit, carrying with it the rich scent of fallen leaves and the distant bonfires that filled the night with warmth and nostalgia. I stood at the edge of Maplewood Park, where the flickering lights from the nearby carnival illuminated the bustling scene. Children were laughing, couples were sharing cotton candy, and somewhere a carousel creaked with joy. But for me, all that vibrancy felt like a stage set for something much darker. This was where it would all come down, a confrontation I had been plotting for far too long. I had been waiting for this moment, the echoes of betrayal still fresh and burning in my heart. The day that changed everything was etched in my mind, clear as crystal. Daniel, my once best friend, had betrayed me in the worst way possible. I could still see the smirk on his face when he handed over the project we worked on together, a project I had poured my soul into. I had trusted him, believed in him, and all he had done in return was stab me in the back. He had taken everything from me, my trust, my dreams, and my reputation. Now I was ready to confront him, to unveil the truth he had buried deep beneath new alliances and deceitful charm. The carnival lights shimmered like stars above me, but I felt far from starry-eyed. I took a deep breath, grounded my shaky nerves, and stepped into the realm of sounds and colors. My heart raced with every step toward the center of the park where I knew Daniel would be. I could see him even now, standing near the funnel cake booth, the soft glow from the fairy lights catching the angular lines of his jaw and the stray locks that fell carelessly over his forehead. He looked too comfortable, too natural, and it sent a jolt of anger through me. Clearly, he hadn't lost any of his charm. He was chatting with a group of friends, laughing in a way that made me want to scream. I clenched my fists at my sides, forcing myself to remember why I was there. This wasn't just about me. It was about everything he had taken from me, everything he had stolen. It was time to hold him accountable. Hey Mila, a voice broke through my thoughts, pulling me back to reality. I turned and saw Lily, my loyal friend and confidant, her eyes sparkling with excitement despite the tension that buzzed in the air. You ready for this? You look a little tense. I'm ready, I replied, swallowing the lump in my throat. I never thought it would come to this. I wanted to handle it differently, but he just makes it so easy. Lily raised an eyebrow, folding her arms as she leaned closer. You aren't having second thoughts, are you? You've got every right to confront him. No, I'm not backing out. I know he'll try to twist things around. He always does. Let him try. You have the truth on your side. Just remember why you're doing this. She placed her hand on my shoulder and gave it a reassuring squeeze. I drew strength from her presence as the sound of laughter and carnival games faded into the background. Thanks, Lily. I needed that, I breathed, feeling a flood of determination wash over me. We maneuvered through the crowd, the sounds of laughter and sizzling snacks almost overwhelming, until we found ourselves standing a mere few feet away from Daniel. I could feel the air thickening with anticipation, every pulse of the crowded space somehow pushing me closer to the inevitable encounter. Look who it is, Ms. High and Mighty, Daniel laughed, his voice plastered with a mock enthusiasm that I had grown to detest. The group he was with turned to look at me, their eyes filled with curiosity and amusement, as if my presence was part of some twisted game. What do you want, Mila? His tone turned condescending, a practiced casualness that set my insides on fire. Careful, Daniel, you don't want to act all nonchalant when someone calls you out on your lies, I shot back, my voice unwavering despite the rush of emotions, a mix of anger, betrayal, and a hint of something like relief at finally facing him. He shrugged, the corner of his mouth curling up in that infuriatingly smug manner. What lies? You didn't backstab me, did you? We are both adults here. Adults. You mean thieves hiding behind a polished facade? You took everything from me, Daniel. Suddenly, the crowd around us shifted, a ripple of thrill coursing through as they sensed the tension. The joyful sounds dulled into a faint murmur, and all that existed was Daniel's infuriating smile and the relentless thumping of my heart. His friends leaned in closer, intrigued, but Daniel stepped forward, trying to maintain his confident demeanor. Is this about the project? You realize it was a collaborative effort, and I was just forward thinking about our careers. Forward thinking? I practically scoffed, shaking my head in disbelief. You mean you were choosing to erase my contributions so you could take all the credit? That's not forward thinking, Daniel. That's just cruel. We both know it was for the best. You were too emotional, caught up in the details. I streamlined the final product. I helped us win that contract. His voice dripped with false concern, and my fists tightened once again. Streamlined, or did you just cut me out entirely? You didn't even give me a chance to explain how much I put into that project before throwing me under the bus. I shot back, my voice rising, the crowd growing more attentive. He chuckled, a sound that sent a wave of disgust through me. Honestly, you're overreacting. Why are you making this a big deal? It's just business. Just business. You think hurting others is just business. My voice trembled. I fought to keep my tone steady, each word charged with raw emotion. What kind of person does that? An ambitious one, he shot back, folding his arms. One that knows how to play the game. If playing the game means stepping on your friends, then I want nothing to do with you, Daniel. You might think you've won, but you haven't. I'm still here, and the truth is coming out. One of his friends piped up, clearly trying to smooth over the tension. Guys, come on. This tension isn't good. It's all in the past, right? Let's move on. But I refused to back down. I turned my gaze back to Daniel, whose composure was starting to crack beneath my words. You think you can keep lying and pretending you did no wrong? It won't work. I saw what you did. I showed people my work, the foundation we built together. But you took it all for yourself. I had to, Mila. You made it easy. You were distracted, always worried about unnecessary details, he sneered, and even now the arrogance dripped heavily from his lips. And you thought that would make it right. If you weren't ready to fight for success, then you had no business in that project in the first place. His friends started glancing at each other, and I could sense the shift, their amusement fading as realization sank in. Maybe my expression of anguish was contagious. They weren't here for drama, they were here for a good time. Is this really how you want to settle this? He stepped closer, his eyes narrowing. With a public confrontation, melodrama, I could feel the anger boiling within me. I knew I had to tread carefully now. This is about accountability, Daniel. You think you can hide behind your charm and charisma forever, but sooner or later, people will see you for who you really are. A fleeting flash of uncertainty crossed his face just for a split second, and that minor crack was enough to invigorate me. I pressed my advantage. You can fool them all, but you can't fool me. You may have the upper hand now, but your lies will collapse eventually. Is that a threat? He asked, his posture shifting slightly as if he had taken a defensive stance. No, it's a promise. A tense silence draped over us, the kind that felt like the calm before a storm. The carnival that once seemed filled with laughter felt distant, dimmed by the gravity of the confrontation unfolding. The sounds of people chatting and children laughing faded away, and in that silence I felt a renewed sense of purpose surge through me. I am going to expose you, Daniel, I continued, my voice lowering to a serious tone. This is not just about revenge. This is about truth. I will not let your selfishness destroy those who trust you. In that moment, a flicker of fear flashed in his eyes, quickly masked by defiance. You wouldn't dare. That would be career suicide for you too. Maybe it would be. But I would rather take that risk than allow your manipulation to go unchecked. The onlookers held their breath, the crowd drawn in closer, sensing the climax of our exchange. People will see it my way, he insisted, but I could hear the wavering uncertainty in his voice. No, Daniel, they will see how you throw friends aside for your personal benefit. You are no longer the golden boy you pretend to be, and I'm going to make sure everyone sees that. As I glanced around, I noticed heads nodding, murmurs exchanging air among our audience. Maybe it was my rising strength, maybe the truth had a power all of its own. Walk away, Mila, just forget this ever happened. You can save face by letting it go, he threatened, his voice now sharper, edged with frustration. No, Daniel, I will fight and I will bring the truth to light. You can't control me anymore, I declared, every word ringing with finality. For a fleeting moment, his facade cracked, and I saw anger bubble beneath the surface before he steadied himself. You're making a mistake. No, Daniel, the mistake was trusting you. Now I'm fixing it. And with that, as I turned to walk away, the heavy weight of adrenaline coursed through my veins. The ground felt solid beneath my feet, and for the first time in months, I felt powerful. I was not just a victim any longer. I was ready for battle. Enjoy your fleeting success while it lasts. I will make sure it crumbles, I called back, the words echoing in the charged air, confident in the resolve within me. As I made my way through the crowd, I sensed something shift among those watching. I saw expressions change from amusement to contemplation. For the first time, I was no longer the one in the shadows. I was stepping out into the light I had allowed him to dim for too long. When I reached a quieter spot near the park, I felt a surge of relief, but it mingled with the anxiety of what was yet to come. Lily caught up to me, her face lit with pride. I knew you could do it, she said, her voice high with excitement. I can't believe I did, I responded, letting out a shaky breath. You showed him, Mila. You didn't cower. You told him the truth. I know this isn't over, though. He will fight back, I admitted, knowing that I had opened a door I could not easily close. But at least you took the first step, and you have me always, she assured me, and I squeezed her hand, bolstered by her unwavering support. I can handle whatever comes next. I'll redeem myself not just for me, but for everyone he hurt along the way. As I looked back toward the carnival, a new determination flickered in my heart. The showdown was just the beginning, and I was ready. The truth was mine, and I would turn the tide. The sun dipped low in the sky, casting an orange hue across the Maplewood Park where everything had began. I stood next to the old oak tree where Jamie and I used to play when we were kids. The wind rustled through the leaves, whispering secrets from our past. I was clothing myself in nostalgia, while deep down, the fire of my revenge still burned fiercely. I had thought I was ready to let go, but as Jamie's face flashed in my mind, the smirk, the laughter, I understood that the past was not simply a faded memory. It was a shackle that held me captive, constraining any chance of peace. "Are you sure you want to do this, Mila?" Chris, my confidant and occasional partner in crime, asked, leaning against the trunk. His brow furrowed, a storm of concern twisting his usually calm demeanor. I could see the sunlight dancing through the branches, illuminating his anxious expression. I took a deep breath, allowing the earthy scent of grass and wood to fill my lungs. "Yes, I'm sure," I replied, forcing the words out with more confidence than I felt. "Jamie took everything from me, Chris, my dignity, my trust, and my dreams. I have to end this. You know you don't have to carry this burden on your own. We could just leave it all behind," he suggested softly, but I shook my head. I was trapped in a prison of my own rage, and the only way out was through revenge. "You deserve to find a way to be happy," he continued, his voice laced with genuine concern. "If I just let it go, it will haunt me forever," I insisted, my voice edged with determination. "I need to confront him, tell him how much he hurt me, and then only then can I start to rebuild my life." My heart hammered in my chest as I envisioned the upcoming confrontation. Would I find strength in my words, or would they fail me when I needed them most? Chris straightened, pushing off the tree. "Okay, but promise me something. If this gets too deep, let it go. Do not let him drag you back into that dark place." "I promise," I said, though part of me doubted I would be able to let it go easy. Many moments of my life were tinged with bitterness, and Jamie was the root of it all. He had hurt me in ways I couldn't even explain, turning our once innocent friendship into a battleground littered with wounds and scars. Today I confront him, and it ends. I have to. The wind picked up, and I brushed a few strands of hair behind my ear, my gaze drifting to the playground, which was now eerily quiet in the late afternoon sun. It struck me how different everything felt, as if the colors dulled around me. Once vibrant laughter had been replaced by the suffocating silence filled only by faint, distant cries of children. A knot twisted in my stomach as I remembered how it felt, standing by Jamie's side, a delicious friendship formed through recesses and scraped knees. "I'll call you later," I said, finding solace in the fact that Chris had my back, even in this tumultuous journey. He nodded, though his eyes still held that concern, and as I turned my back to him, I steeled myself for the confrontation that lay ahead. I gathered my bag and stepped into the world just beyond the park, making my way down the winding street toward the coffee shop, the place where it had all unraveled. When I arrived, the muggy air fused with the rich aroma of coffee and pastries. The place buzzed with whispers and laughter, a contrast to the turmoil within me. My stomach twisted as I stepped inside, the bell jingling lightly above me. There he was, seated in the far corner, casually scrolling through his phone as if he had not a care in the world. Jamie, my nemesis. How could he sit there, blissfully unaware of the storm brewing within me? "Just breathe, Mila," I whispered to myself, my voice barely audible over the hum of the cafe chatter. I could feel my pulse quickening, the anxiety clawing at the edges of my thoughts. Gathering my courage like armor, I crossed the room slowly, the click of my heels echoing in the otherwise vibrant atmosphere. Each step felt like 1,000 eyes were focused on me, judging, questioning, while my heart raced violently in my chest. "Hey, Jamie," I said, feigning nonchalance as I slid into the seat across from him. He looked up, surprise flickering in those familiar hazel eyes that once held warmth. "Mila." "Wow, it's been a while," he said, his voice steady, an air of relaxed superiority laced through his tone. He flashed that cocky smile that used to make my heart flutter, now it made my blood boil. "Yes, about that," I began, my heart drumming in my ears. Words teetered on the brink of my tongue, but anxiety threatened to suffocate me. "I came here because I need to talk." "Sure, what's on your mind?" He leaned back, crossing his arms, that smug grin unshaken by the weight of my intended confrontation. I hesitated, my voice faltering as I gathered strength. "I want you to understand what you did to me." He raised an eyebrow, and that infuriating grin lingered. "Me? Come on, Mila, we were kids. What's there to understand?" "Kids? Is that really how you see it?" My voice sharpened, and the coffee shop blurred around us. I could only focus on the boy who had turned my youthful sparkle into a shadow. The betrayal, the indignation, it ignited flames I thought I had extinguished. "You don't get to just dismiss it like that. Those are real memories, real pain. You didn't just hurt me, you shattered my life. Do you even care?" "Of course I care, but it was a long time ago," he shrugged, that cavalier attitude just infuriating me more. "People grow up, Mila. You should too." "Grow up," I echoed incredulously. "You're kidding, right? You think growing up means pretending your actions have no consequences? You crushed me, Jamie. You were my best friend. And when I needed you, you chose to toy with my trust instead." He sat up a little, the humor fading as irritation flickered across his face. Look, if I had known you would take it this seriously, take it seriously. You knew I was vulnerable, desperate for friendship after everything I went through, and you exploited that. You spread rumors, manipulated situations. I became the laughingstock at school. My other friends turned their backs because of you. The storm of my emotions surged, and I felt weight lifting off my chest as the truth spilled out. Do you know how hard it was to rebuild myself after that? I did what I had to do to get ahead, he countered, his voice defensive like a wolf in a corner. We were kids, it's what happens. No, what happens is you lose your humanity. I shot back, my cheeks warm from the immense rush of anger. I leaned forward, locking my eyes onto his. You have no idea what it felt like to watch everything crumble around me while you just stood there laughing. Okay, I was wrong, he sighed, recognizing the shift in our battle. His bravado dimmed, and for a moment I saw a flicker of guilt in his eyes. I didn't realize the impact it would have. You can't hold me back forever on something that happened a lifetime ago. Forever. You think I want this to haunt me forever? I shook my head, pulling my hands into my lap. I want to be free of this darkness, Jamie, but your actions left scars. I want you to know what I went through. I want acknowledgement. His brows knitted in thought, and for the first time I sensed weariness instead of condescension. Mila, I can't change the past. What can I do to help you now? I'm not that person anymore. I've moved on. Moving on doesn't come easy for everyone, I said softly, the sharp edges of my anger beginning to dull as frustration seeped away. I took years to move past the fear, the memories, the feeling of betrayal. I wanted you to feel something, to understand, not just brush me off like I never mattered. Maybe I can make it up to you somehow. What if we just tried to be friends again? His offer was tentative, and I could see the sincerity behind it. But could I really wrap my head around that? Friends, I repeated, a whirlwind of emotions swirling as I processed his words. A part of me yearned for that connection once again, yet another part clawed back, reminding me of the darkness of our history, of the hurt that settled physically in my chest. This isn't just about friendship, Jamie. I need to know you understand, and not just in words. It's about accountability. I understand that now, he said slowly, searching my eyes for clarity. What I did was cruel, and even if I was young, it doesn't change the scars I caused. I'm sorry, Mila. Genuine remorse hung heavily in the air between us. Sorry doesn't fix everything. I pushed the words through clenched teeth. Dialogue and honesty poured forth as I wrestled with the battle in my heart, but it's a start. I felt a weight lift, and though the past could never be rewritten, perhaps I could forge a new future, one step at a time. Silence settled heavily between us as he absorbed this evolution of our conversation. I could sense the transformation flickering in Jamie's eyes, and while trust still felt like glass, fragile and capable of shattering, it was no longer insurmountable. Mila, can we at least try? He asked, the weight of my memories pressing invisibly upon his shoulders. Can't we begin with this, start anew? My mind was swirling, the storm of betrayal slowly ebbing. Maybe I could rethink the boundaries. Maybe revenge was not the only way to reclaim my identity. As I stared into those hazel eyes, I glimpsed the possibility of healing. Okay, I said finally, my voice just above a whisper. An open door, an uncertain smile graced his lips, and I was struck by the irony of it all. For years, I had wanted to see this moment, yet here we were in a fragile space where friendship seemed possible, though haunted by the ghosts of our past. That night, as I walked away from the coffee shop, the twilight sky wrapped me in shadows, yet I felt a peculiar lightness in my heart. I had confronted my past, owning the pain it brought while allowing the possibility of healing. Just maybe vengeance was not my only path forward. Maybe I could rebuild that bond with Jamie brick by painful brick if I chose to let go of the weight I had carried for too long. Healing is a journey, and I was ready to take the first step towards that uncertain road ahead.